All right. Uh, Good day, guys, and welcome to today's class. Okay. So, in our last class, right, we talked more about authentication, password hashing, how to um, how to log in, and how to authenticate a user, right? How to verify a user before sending him details, right? So that is what we did in the last class. Okay. But then um we everybody was just basically users that signed up on the uh service or the API we created, right? So that means everybody had the same privilege. So everybody they were able to actually create notes tasks. They were able to create tasks, they were able to delete tasks, they were able to edit tasks, right? Yeah. So that is normal, right? But then what if you wanted a situation where um someone, maybe an admin, can do something, right? You have two different kinds of users, right? Maybe an admin and an ordinary user, right? And then you can designate what the user can do and what the user cannot do, right? And then you also designate or privileges or rules, right? So based on your role, this is what you can do and the rest, right? So that has to do with role-based authorization, okay? So role-based authorization uh, it works this way, right? You have uh, users, right? Or you have people signed up on your API, but with different roles, okay? So if someone can be, for example, in a company, you have you have hierarchy in a company, right? You have uh, staffs, you have uh, maybe the CEO of the company, you have other people, right? Then you have the normal users that use the product of that company, right? So there are some things the users can do, right? And there are some things that the user might not be allowed to do, right? Things that are the staffs are allowed to do, right? And then the staffs too have some things they can't do, which the CEO can do, right? So that's kind of hierarchy, right? Based on their role, right? They can do one or two things. So that's what I'll actually talk about today, and we'll see how we can uh, make rules and then use those rules to uh, restrict people from taking some kind of activities, right? All right. So uh, what we'll just cover here is I'll just talk about what is authorization and then how we can actually perform rule-based authorization using express middlewares. Okay, so I've already talked a bit about authorization, right? So what is authorization? So authorization is just the act of either restricting someone or giving someone access to perform a particular uh, operation on your API, right? So, okay, so authentication comes before authorization, right? So first, who are you? Okay, prove to us that you are a staff, right? Or prove to us that you are registered here on our site. That's authentication. Okay, we know that this is your name and this is your phone number and this is your role. And based on this role, you are allowed to take this operation, or you're allowed to take this action, right? Or after when you've authenticated the user, right? We can then check, oh, is this route or is this operation this user is trying to take, right? Is that operation uh open to him to take? If it's not open for, or if he's not allowed for that particular user, then you can tell the user that he's unauthorized to actually take uh that action. Okay, so that's authorization. So that's the difference. Authentication proves to us if you say you are part of us, right? Or you're part of our site, or you're part of our API, prove to us, tell us something about you that only you know, right? Only you and the API knows, right? Then after that, we can then use that to know what actions you can take, right? So we have role-based authorization and we also have permission-based authorization. But today we will look more into role-based authorization, okay, using authorization middleware. Okay, so with what I've said, is there any question? Does anybody have any question to ask? Right? Any question? No question. Let's move on. So I'm going to share my VS Code so we can actually start testing out one or two things. Okay, so we are here on our VS Code, and remember we already uh created authentication route and the task route, right? So let's think of something that we might want to add to task, but we don't want the um we don't want the general public or the users to have access to. Now, first and foremost, let's come back here and check this. On our user schema, we only have full name, email, and password, right? So if an admin signs up and a user signs up, how do we mark the difference between these two different users based on their role, right? There's no way for us to actually know if a person is an admin or a user, right? So how that means we will need to add a new property here, right? Now, this is what you will do. When you're adding new properties, remember that the properties, before this property was added, some data have already been saved on the database, right? So trying to check if someone is an admin now or someone is a staff, there are a lot of records that won't even have that particular field. Okay, I'll zoom my screen ladder. Uh, um, let me zoom it in now. Okay, I hope it's big enough for you to see. All right, so now we can start putting in those roles by giving it a new property, right? Giving our users a new property of role. The role type will be string, right? Now, after giving the users the role type, you might want to restrict the kind of roles they can create, right? So that maybe you just need only staff, okay, only user and admin roles, right? So we can do something like this, enum, enum. Enum stands for enumerator, right? So this enumerator is used to describe the list of values that can be accepted on this role property, right? So I could say I accept user and I accept admin. Those are the two roles that you can use when you're trying to register. But if you're not user or admin, it shouldn't allow you to register. Now, remember I said that the other ones we created before, right? The users we created before didn't have any role. So which means you can give all of them a default role so that if you don't have a role, then you just know that you're a user. Okay. So we can do that by using the default statements here, right? And we'll say default should be user. So if you registered before without a role, then automatically we just see you as being a user. Okay. So this in turn now can be used to identify the role of that particular user, if he is actually a user or an admin. You know, you can add more roles, right? So I could say user, admin, staff, and the rest. Okay. Now, then also what this default helps in doing is that in case while registering, if you didn't add the role, right? If you didn't add the role while you're trying to register a new user, the role will automatically be set to user for that particular user that is registering, except you set it to maybe admin. That is when it will now change, right? I hope you guys get that. Then I hope you guys understand what this unique means. I just saw it and decided to talk about it. Right? This unique just means that two emails, two identical emails can't be registered on this same user model. Okay. Uh, no. No. If you I said you can add more. You can add more roles. I could say staff, admin, staff, user, admin, staff, cook, right? I could add more roles, right? But if now I'm trying to register and I now pass a role as security or chef, right? Chef is not on this list, so it will tell you that uh the role is invalid, right? Because the role is not amongst what is here. But if I use user, maybe while I'm trying to register, I use user, admin, staff, or cook to try and register, it's going to work perfectly well, right? But let me remove these two. Those were just for illustration purpose. So I hope I have answered your question, Timothy. All right. So let's move on. Okay. We have that. Um, then so let's come back here. Let's see how people are registering, right? Remember, we accepted full name, email, and password, right? So this is something also you have to do. You come here and say uh row. Row should be equal to req.body.row, right? But if this row, right, I hope you guys are following. All right, then I would also like to store this row on the token, right? So while registering, you provide your role. If you don't provide your role, then the role will automatically be assigned to be given the value of user. Then I would like to do this. I would say role here on my JWT should be user detail dot role. Yeah, so that each time I decrypt the or verify this token, I can just get the role of the user by like seeing the payload, the value of the payload, right? Or the properties in the payload. All right, then after doing those two, the next thing I have to do is I have to create protected like routes that the users can make use of. Okay, we already have the route that users can actually make use of, right? So all these routes now, right? Generally, all these routes can be used by anybody, right? These routes can be used by anybody. But then let me create the admin one, right? The one that can only be used by admins, right? So I'll create a route that can be used to fetch um all the task, irrespective of who owns that task. Okay. So I would want to do that. And this is how I'm going to write it. Right. I'll say route dot find. Oh, sorry, route dot get. I'll say slash admin slash tasks, or let me say all tasks, right? Async request response. Then inside here, okay, I'll write tasks should be equal to await task collection dot find. And this is going to fetch all the tasks, irrespective of who owns it, right? Then the next thing is to respond with that list of tasks. Now, I've done that, but as it stands now, anybody can access this route. Okay, I'll push the code to GitHub, Timothy. Right, anybody can actually access this route. Okay, but then how do I restrict people from accessing this route? Right? How do I restrict people from accessing this route? Okay, and also on this delete, right? There's something I'll do on this delete. Now, this delete just allows anybody to delete a task if the person knows the idea of that task. So how do we stop people from deleting tasks that don't belong to them, right? If they know the idea of that task, they can delete it. We'll also find out how we can actually do that, how we can restrict people from deleting any task. But they can only delete only their own task. They can't delete someone else's task. Okay? Now, after this user logged in, right? I might not want to create a middleware that covers all the routes, right? I might want to create a route for or a middleware for a specific route. And this is what I'm going to do now. So now I want to create that middleware to restrict only admins from using, like, to use that that last route I just created. I think I should even do it under. Let me not really go to the top. So in order to do that, this is what I'll do. I'll just create a function. I'll call it admins only. I'll just call it admins only. And in here, I'll say request response next. Right? Admins only with request response and next. Then remember that let's come back here. Remember that when once the user is decoded, anytime I write req.decoded, I would have access to that JWT value that was decoded from the user. Okay. Do you guys remember this? Remember that this decoded, right? Remember that when the user was trying to log in, when we go to auth, remember that this is the payload of the JWT, right? That we created and sent to the user to store. That's JWT. The payload for that JWT contains the email, the user's ID, and the user's role. Abi? Now, if we come back here, when we verify a token, right? This results here, this decoded here, is actually that object that contains the email, the role, and the other property, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm passing it in the request object. I'm creating a new request object named decoded, and the decoded object contains that's what I actually decoded. So now what I can do here is I can come here and say if req.decoded.row is equals to admin. So I'm checking if the row of that person is an admin. If the row is an admin, then I'll call the next function. So the next function is going to allow it to go to the next route. But then I could say else. Then I would want to respond I would want to respond with a status of I think 401. Then here I would send that you are not an admin. Okay. Then how do I add this? How do I add this middleware I've created to only this route? So that even if I want to write a route under here, right, this admins only might not affect our route. You know, if I use app.use here, right, or app.use or route.use, sorry, if I use route.use here, any controller that I'm going to write under this route.use will have this effect, the effect of this middleware, right? So if I want it to only affect this particular get, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'll come here and I'll just write admins only, then comma. So this is me adding this middleware to only this route, so that even if I create a route under this route, right, or if I create a controller under this controller, right, this admins only won't also affect it. Okay, I hope you guys are like getting the whole flow. Does anybody have any question? Nobody has any question so far. Okay, so in the absence of questions, any question, let's still move further. Okay, we have that, and then let's try to create some users. So I'll clear that. Come and run npm start. Okay. Then we are finally here. And let me do something also. A user can also view his profile. I beg. Why won't the user be able to view his profile? Right? So let me come here. I could create that profile. I don't think it's nice to create the profile inside task. Even this admin self, I would have created a folder for it, right? Or a file for it. But you can do that on your own. I'll just say route. Um, let me just do it on the auth. Mm, okay. So if I want to do that on the auth, how do I get this? If I want to do that on the auth, how do I use the middleware? Ah, that's another thing. So I could say export module dot export uh is user logged in equals to that. Oh, it actually crashed. It's saying its user logged in is not defined anymore. So I think take this to I have to take this to the bottom. This user logged in. Okay, so Timothy asking which route sets the rule? Okay, the register route is the one that sets the rule, right? So while registering, if you don't provide a role, then a default role of user will be assigned to you. But if you provide a role, which is like maybe the admin role, or yeah, it's going to it's going to create the admin, you as an admin, right? But you can still pass in user as a role too. Okay, why didn't you use one module.export for the two exports? Well, the reason for that is this particular one, right, is a kind of is a default export, right? So I'm just saying, anytime I refer to this route, to this file, right, without specifying like a literal name, right, then it's going to use this route. Whatever I said I'm looking for is user logged in. Then while pointing at this particular file, then it's going to actually give me access to this function. So at this point, at this part, I can come here and say const equals to require then I could say I'm looking for tasks. Okay, sorry, slash tasks. But in the tasks, I'm looking for hey, hmm, did I just make a mistake? Okay, wait, let me do this route. Hmm. So let me see. Okay, what is it saying now? What is it saying? What is it saying? Method or use requires a middleware function but got a middleware function but got an object. This is the problem with this exporting like this. If I try exporting this way, routes and sorry, it's locked in. It is still going to crash. And I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that. Let me see if that is going to work out. Okay, then let me come here and see if I could get access. I'm not still getting access to. So if I type is logged in, it's not actually giving me that value. Okay, so if I want to actually solve this problem, right? The simplest method is to actually create a file for this, right? So I'll just come here to routes and then, or I could create a new folder and put it inside there, right? I could just say maybe middlewares here, middlewares.js. Then inside this middlewares.js, I'll come and where is it? Where is it? Where is it? On the tasks, I'll just I'll copy out this middleware I've created and paste it here. I'm sure I created another middleware down somewhere. And then this admins only, I also put it inside here, right? I could even call them auth middlewares. Then I could then say module.exports equals to is user logged in and admins only. Then at this point, what I just need to do is import it here, right? I'll say uh require middlewares or /middlewares. Then right here, all I just need to do is admins only and is user logged in, and everything should repair itself. Yep. So yeah, I hope you guys understood what I just did. Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I did? Hello? Is there anybody that don't understand what I just did? So let me explain, right? I just moved everything that had to do with middlewares to a different file, and then I exported them. I exported the functions so that I can import them anywhere I would want to import them. For example, I can import that function here now, right? So for profile, I could come here and say const should be equals to require, then I'll say /middleware. Then in here, I want to check if the user is logged in before I can give him his profile, right? So at this bottom, I could then say router dot get, right, /profile. Then after that, I'll say is logged in because I just want it to only affect that one route. And then after that, I could then write req res then inside here. Now there's this thing I didn't really talk about, right? When each time you have an error on your server, it crashes, right? And that's because you didn't wrap your code with a try and catch. So if you don't wrap your code around, if you don't wrap your code with a try and catch, right? Anytime there is an error, the error will just crash the server, right? So because there's no code that is trying to manage that error, right? Or address that error. So, but if you have something like this, a try and catch, the catch block of code, right, is going to manage that error. So at this point, I could just console.log the error. And then after that, I could respond internal server error. And then remember, internal server error status code is 500. Okay. Then let me check. What are the things I'm using to, I have user ID here, I have role, and I have email. So I could do something like this. Const user should be equals to await user collection dot find by ID. The ID for the user that I want to find out is actually going to be the ID that I get from the token. Remember that is logged in is going to pass a decoded payload, right? So I could then say the user ID is going to be req.decoded dot, remember, user ID. I could use that to get the profile of any user if that user exists. Remember, I need to send it back. So I'll say res.send, and here I'll send back user. Okay. So anybody has any question? Does anybody have any question? Nobody has any question so far. Or you guys are just waiting for me to push the code, then we go. We go and check it out. Hello. All right.
Yeah, with
So
you. We are with you. We are with
yeah,
you.
okay. All right, no problem. Cool. So the server is up. Let's start testing ourselves, right? Now I could say /v1/auth/profile, and I could send that requests. What is it saying? JWT not defined. Is user logged in? Okay. What is it saying? JWT is not defined. So now, you guys, most of you encounter error, but once you encounter error, maybe the first thing you shout is blood of Jesus, and you actually look for someone to actually help you to solve it. But then the essence of you, right, being a programmer is to try and also like solve your code, right? Understand, because error is inevitable. So you always have issues, and then you'll find out how to actually solve that issue. So what is it saying? Reference error. JWT is not defined at is user logged in. See, they're even telling you where the problem is user logged in. Okay, so let's go there. Let's go to the middleware. Let's read through our code now. Now, look at it. They said JWT is not defined, are they? Now, the problem is, where are we getting our secret from to decode it, right? We did not come here and say require dot env dot config. Okay, because remember that anyway you're going to use your secret, you have to require .env dot config. Then what else is missing? You have headers, authorization. If there's no authorization, say no, there's no authorization. If there's no authorization header, or if there's an authorization header, we split it and we do what we are supposed to do here. Then we are checking for the role here, right? Okay. So let's make that request again. And if we have an error, we'll check it out again. It's saying JWT is not defined. JWT is not defined at its user log in middleware line 18. Okay, so let's go to line 18. Okay, JWT is not defined. This JWT here is what is not defined. So we need to come here and say const JWT equals to require, then inside here, JSON web token. Okay, then we'll come back and make that request. Voila, I've solved my issue. It's that simple. If you don't read your error code and try to understand it, right, you won't be able to actually solve problems easily. Right? See how I just solved a problem now. So we see that we have full name. Remember that when I registered this account, remember when I registered this particular account, I just gave full name, email, and password. But because of the default I put on the auth or the user's model, right? It's now adding the role of user automatically for me since I don't have any role. Okay. Then my full name, every other thing, password. Now, this is something also not ethical to do, right? See, I'm sending everything. I'm even sending plus the password, right? Back to the user, which is not good. So how do I hide this password from the user, right? I don't want the user to see this password. Maybe I just want him to see only full name and email. So how do I filter out what the user can see? Now let's come back here, right? I could, where is it? I would come here to the profile. After writing that this is the ID I want to get, I can now write comma, and then in quotes, I'll write the things I want the user to see. So if I write full name and I write email, those are the two things the user will be able to see. And irrespective of what you write here, the user's ID is always sent back. So if we make this request again, you see that you will see the ID of that user, then you see his email and you see his full name, right? That is one method. If you want, now we are declaring what we want the user to see when he requests for his profile, right? But what if I wanted to do it the other way around? What if I wanted to declare things that I did not want him to see, right? So I don't want him to see the password, but he can see the rest of the values, right? How do I do it? Right? To do that, you would come back and this is what you would write. Instead of writing the things you want him to declare to see, right? You just write minus or dash, then password. So this is saying, show him every other thing apart from the password. So if I make that request again, you see, we have role, ID, full name, email created, any password, right? So that's a way of you hiding some sensitive data, right? Or hiding, although the password is hashed, no doubt, but why do you want to show it to the user, right? If someone wants to get the password, the hash password of the user to try to see if we can actually break it, right? Unhash it, right? if the person wants to do that and you don't hide the password, the person can easily get the password. Okay, so let's continue. Then let's test that new route that we just created. Where is it? Let's test this route for all the tasks, right? And see if we will be able to get it. Remember that I am a user now. So let me copy this, copy it, come here. Instead of auth, we would have /v1/tasks/ then admin/all tasks. Okay. Now, if we try to make that request, you see, you are not an admin. Shows up ASAP. I'm not an admin because my default role is user, right? So I'm not an admin. Or if the role is empty or the role is user, right? Then just tell him that you're not an admin, right? But let me register an admin and also try it again. So to register an admin, come here. I would say um I'll just say admin@gmail.com with a password of admin1234, or so that I don't have reasons to come back and look for the former account. I think I'll just create a new request there. I'll call the full name admin. I'll make the email admin@gmail.com and the password is admin1234. So if I send that, oh, sorry, I didn't add the role.
Out
Sorry.
of the role. The
Uh,
role.
yeah, sorry, I didn't add that role. So the role is admin, and I already sent the request. Okay. So the only thing I need to do is I could just say admin@admin.com because I don't want to waste time to go and actually delete the record I just created. Okay, so if I send that, we see created successfully. Yeah, we've created that successfully. Then I can come and log in. So come here, admin@admin.com. Password is going to be admin1234. Send that request. I get my token back, copy my token. Then the next thing I'll do is I'll then come and try to send a request to get all the tasks. So I'll come and paste that token here, paste it, and then let's send that request. Yay! So now I get all the tasks, irrespective of who owns the task, whether the task is owned by someone or not, right? I can get all the tasks, right? As an admin. So that's one way of, that's right, how to restrict people from using some certain maybe routes, because that route is restricted to a particular set of people, right? So you can create more, right? You can create uh middlewares that check if someone is either a staff or an admin. You can create a middleware to check if someone is a user and a staff before you can access a particular route. You see, you can use that to create secured controllers that can't just be accessed by just anybody. They can be only accessed by people with special rules. Okay. So does anybody have any question to uh, ask, right, about what I've just explained so far? Is there any question? Does anybody have any? No question, guys. Okay, so in the absence of question, I think I would talk about the other way. Okay, yeah, the videos will definitely drop, so you have access to watch the video. Okay, then there's what I said I would actually show, which is how to prevent people from deleting notes, right? Randomly, any notes that they have the ID, they can delete, right? Now, remember that at this delete, right? You just said, you just pick the ID and delete it. You don't even check if the notes you're trying to delete belongs to the user, right? And even in the edit, so these are steps you take to secure your API, right? Before, well, most times this uh this behavior, right, of trying to delete someone else's maybe someone else's record or data can be avoided if the maybe you have a front end developer that's maybe there's a way he checks if someone is the owner of a particular record, right? And then if the person is not the owner of that record, he hides the delete button. But then there are still some people that will want to maybe try to look for a way to maybe test the security of your API, how secure your API is, and then they end up maybe doing some things that maybe might get the company into trouble, or you as the owner of the API into trouble, right? So before deleting a task, right, you can actually check if the user is the owner of the task, right? Remember that, let me make that request again by the admin. Remember that at this point, some tags don't have any owner, right? This tags here is just there. These tags there don't have any owner. The same thing with this one, but this last task here has an owner, which is this user, which is the user with this ID, right? So now you can check if the decoded ID is the same as this ID, then it means that the person trying to delete the tax is the owner of the tax, then you can delete it. But then if it is not that, if it's not so, you can return a response that the person can carry out that action. So this is what I mean, right? On this task, you can write something like this. You can say, if req.decoded.user ID is not equal to. So first, before you do this, right? Remember that this ID is the ID for the node, not the user's ID. So before you do this, you have to first fetch that node to check. So you can say something like this: node should be equals to await find or the tasks collection dot find by ID, and then you can then say request dot, remember that this is a parameter, so request dot params dot ID, right? So now this node now contains everything to do with the node that has that ID. So you can say if the decoded user ID is not equal to notes dot user. If is not equal, then you can respond with a text telling them you are not allowed to delete this note or this task. Then remember that after writing this, you must always add a return so that this code will not continue further to try and delete the task. You need to always add your return. Then you say response.status of 401. Then you can send them that they are not allowed to delete that task, right? So let's see that in action, right? I just created an admin, right? And let me try to use that admin to delete someone else's task. So I send this, I get some few tasks that, okay, I would like to try to delete this one that has a user, right? So I'll just come here and duplicate this, copy, then come under here and paste it. Authorization bearer, then I'll just copy that token, come here and paste it. Okay, this is going to be a delete to /tasks / v1/tasks / the ID for that task. Copy it, come here, paste. Then let me see if everything is okay. Everything is okay, right? So I'm trying to delete someone else's task as an admin. You see? So that is because the admin's ID is not the same as the user's ID for that particular task. So which means the admin is not the owner of that task. So that's why it's telling me I'm not allowed to delete that task. And of course, if we come back here and get all the tasks, you'll see that that task is still very well intact, right? That task is not deleted. It's there. So while creating APIs, you will always take all these things into consideration. How do you make it more very secure? Because it's people's data that you're actually housing, right? And they trust you to keep that data safe. So how do you like make sure that those data is safe, right? So these are like the security, the steps you can use to actually do that, to make sure that their data is safe. Okay, we have that. So does anybody have any question with what I've actually done so far? Any question? Nobody has any question today? Hello? Hello, guys. Okay, so in the absence of question,
Hello, Mr. Victor. We
yeah,
are still with you.
yeah,
I'm still
okay,
with you.
okay, no problem. Okay. Now, there's this thing I wanted us to review on our code, right? Let's try to refactor our code, right? Some of these things we wrote here are not like, should I say, really that necessary. Now, first thing is, let's look for a way to
Sorry,
destruct
please,
our
before
code.
we continue, I'm getting tax collection is not defined. That's for the node. Const node.
Tax, what did it say?
Tax collection is not defined.
Okay, if you're getting tax collection is not defined, in that file that you're trying to use tax collection, have you imported tax collection? Because look at this is tax collection. If
Under the delete route for
under
const
the
node.
delete route, are you sure you spelled it well? Make sure that it's the same as what you actually imported.
I use it in the same route. You know, we have to use it to delete.
Yes. Okay. I don't know why it isn't working. It's saying task collection is not defined. Hello? Hello? Is it saying task collection is not
I've
defined?
seen the error. I've seen the error. It's not correctly spelled.
Yes. So if it's not correctly spelled, it won't work too. Okay. Now look, we want to destructure some things. Okay. Now, when we say we are destructuring something, let me create a new file here. I'll just say destructuring here, destructuring.js. I'll come here. Now, if we have, let's take for example our request object. We have const req equals to, right? It has headers, then it has body, and then the body might have something like task title. Task title can be task 1, right? And then we have something like task body should be, this is the body of a task, right? I know that let me remove this header self. Let me just talk about the body. I remember that what we did, right, in our route was when we want to use this, we would say something like this. Would say maybe await task collection dot maybe create, if I want to create. Then inside the create, I'll now do something like this. I'll now say task body is equals to request dot body dot task body. Then the task title, I'll now say task title is request dot body dot task title. Even if this works, but this code is just somehow actually not to me it doesn't look really nice, right? No, because it works well, but then there's something you could have done to actually make the code more better, like more readable. So the best to do is to destructure it. Now, this is how you can destructure. You say const, right? Almost the same way we did when we import stuff, right? You would say equals to request dot body. Just write request dot body. Then inside this request dot body, you see these brackets. But once you come and maybe press Control and space, you see tax title, comma, then you see tax body 1. Now, in here, what you can just do is instead of writing request dot body dot tax body, you can just write tax body. And here you can write tax title. Okay. But then again, since year 6 has told us that if the key and the variable name for the value is the same, then we can just write only the key name. So instead of writing tax body is tax body and tax title is tax title, right? You can just simply write tax body, comma, tax title, and everything will work fine. Who doesn't understand? So this fashion of unpacking the properties of an object is called destructuring. So this is how you can destructure an object. The same way you can destructure an object, you can also destructure an array, right? So I could do something like ARR should be ARR should have or let's just say roles, right? I could say roles could be admin, staff, students, trainer, right? Now, if I want to destructure this, right? I could just come and say const equals to req.rows. And then inside here, inside here, I could come and just write, I could say AD for admin, ST for staff, ST for students, TR for trainer. So AD would be mapped to admin, ST would be mapped to staff, STU will be mapped to students, TR will be mapped to trainer, right? So let me delete this one, and then if I console.log AD, come here, NodeJs, destructuring.js, you see that admin is being printed out. If I change this to ST and I come back here and run the code, you see, staff is mapped to this ST. The same way students is mapped to STU, then trainer is mapped to TR. So instead of me writing roles, so this saves me the stress of writing something like this, console.log, and then I'll then write roles at 2, right? Sorry, not rows, request.roles at 2. Sorry, 0, 1. Okay. Sorry, I thought this is students. So this would be 1, right? 0 and 1. So instead of me writing request.row at 1 to get to staff, for example, I could destructure it and just write ST here, and ST is going to represent staff. If I want to get maybe students, I'll just say STU, right? As opposed to writing request.rows at 2. Okay. So with the knowledge of what I have explained so far, if we come back here, right? If we come back to our login, right? We can start destructuring something. So I could say const equals to request.body. Then inside here, I know that the body is expecting an email and a password. So I could just write email, comma, password there. Then at this point, I could just delete this whole stuff because email is still email again, right? Then this place to check the password, right? Request the body the password. I could just remove the whole request the body and allow password to remain, right? Then I wouldn't want to try to structure this, so let's leave it at that. Then at this point, well, I could destructure this also, right? So this email would, okay, I could say const user email, comma, okay, let me just leave that out first. Equals to req dot, sorry, user detail, right? Then in here, note, you can also rename the value of and what you destructure. So for example, we know that this user detail contains email. So I could say email, then colon user email. So now I'm saying that I'm expecting an email from this user detail, but I'm renaming it to be user email so that it won't conflict with this email that I already have here, right? User email, then I could say underscore ID here and row, right? Then at this point, I'll just remove the whole long string and just write user email there. So it highlights that. Then at this point for the ID, I can just write ID, the role, I can just write row. So I think this code is more readable in my opinion, it's more readable, it's simpler to understand, okay? Then at this point too, we can decode the user ID, right? So we can say req.decoded, but then we are looking for user ID in here, right? And at this point, I don't need to write request.decoded.user ID. I can just simply write user ID. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm trying to do here, right? I just hope you guys understand what I'm doing. If we come to task, we can do the same thing here. So we can say, we can still destructure here by saying req.body. At this point, we'll have task title, task body. Then the user ID is coming from the decoded request, right? So we can then say, we can then say that const user ID should come from req.decoded. So at this point, I just need to remove the request.body.tax title. And since tax title and tax title are the same, I can just remove tax title. I can as well remove tax body and the user ID. I could just remove request.decoded.user ID and leave it that way. Okay. So I could do the same thing here. So const ID is going to be equals to request.params. Then at this point, I could remove the ID and just leave it at request.params. Okay. The same thing here. So I could just copy this and paste. Copy this, come here, and remove that. So I think it makes more sense this way, right? makes a lot of sense writing it this way than always writing those long string, right? Okay, so with what I've explained so far, I hope there's no question. Okay, so if there's no question, right, we've come to the end of the class for today. So your biggest takeaway should be how you restrict routes, right? Certain routes to certain uh, people, right? So, or to certain roles. So if you don't have a particular role, you might not be able to access a particular kind of route or a particular type of route, maybe a route for admins. If you're a user, you should not be able to access the admin uh, route or controller, right? Then the structuring too, right? How you can write your code and make it more um, readable and simpler. Okay. Okay. So yeah, Timothy, I won't forget to push the code actually. I won't forget that. I'll push it. So in the absence of any question for today, we'll call it a day. All right. So see you guys by next week, Tuesday. If you have any question while you're trying to practice, try to solve it first. If you are not still clear, right? Then you can then ask the question on the group, right? So things would be simpler, right? Okay. Okay. You're welcome, Timothy, right? Timothy says, thank you very much. You're welcome. And see you next week, Tuesday.